Hi, thanks for everyone for coming. Yeah, my name is Dominic and I'm the VP of LabelWorx, so I look after the artist, content and labels, everything at LabelWorx. So the purpose of today's talk is optimising an independent record label to really give you an insight into our working relationship with all our labels and, including Solid Grooves who we've worked with for 7 years now, since the inception of their label. So yeah, I'll pass it over to these guys to introduce themselves as well.
Okay, so I'm Ramin Rezaie. I'm the label manager of Solid Grooves Records. Here today to just get a deeper understanding for you guys between the relationship between LabelWorx, myself, and you guys. So yeah, go for it.
I'm Matt Abbott, the CEO and co-founder of LabelWorx. We've been doing this for 15 years now this year. And yeah, we're just here to give an understanding for anyone about how the whole thing works with the independent labels from start to being successful.
So for those who don't know much about what LabelWorx do, so our core business is distribution and sort of label management. So we really work closely with the record labels. We can be sort of as hands-on or as hands-off as you need us to be. And one of those things is the day-to-day running of the labels, and where we really get involved is like planning and just working out the needs of the labels. So that would be a good point to start of like what's the sort of the day-to-day running that comes from your side, and like what things you're looking for when you're signing a record and starting a label when you wake up in the morning, basically.
I mean, it's just what I kind of look for is just like, obviously we kind of work together, and I mean, most important thing like with running a label like this is to be ahead of the game. So you want to be like, your schedule wants to be at least a year in advance. Like I kind of noticed that a lot. Like when starting out is, you get a load of music and you have like, tracks ready for the year, and you just kind of, you want to get it well in advance, so you're not like waiting around for like playlists and, building relationships with the stores. And that's like one of the most important things that, that I've kind of like looked for and like do.
Yeah, I mean, from our side, like, essential things that we're always looking for is for labels to have that, understanding of what they're trying to achieve. A big thing people always, they want that instant success, but it's like really think about the future. It's not, sometimes you do get that immediate success, you might have a big hit, but you need to plan for like 3-5 years where you're going to be in that time, and it's just implementing those things around it. So I mean, like what like essential things do you think are needed to really help elevate your label in that shorter period?
Well, in that short period, I mean, it's to have a good collective of artists, and like I said, just building solid relationships with, the artist, distributors, and people at the stores. Look, just keep it in advance. Like that's what I kind of concentrate on, is just to be as ahead as I can be possible.
Yeah, when labels are starting out, we always recommend they have 3 to sort of 6 tracks minimum signed, and have a really good vision about what they want to do. A lot of people want to start a record label, and one of the major pitfalls we see is, so I've made a track, I've had some tracks out, I've sent it to a bunch of labels, nobody wants to sign it, so I'll put it out my own label. It's fantastic. The best thing is if somebody does accept to want to sign it, a decent label, maybe say, actually, I won't do that. I'll put it out myself, and have that quality and consistency. The label itself, and like you're starting a business, you need that vision of what that is, and why you're starting it, what the ethos is, where you want it to go, how you want it to develop, and that's kind of strategy with the label and every single release. The more thought that goes into it, you're releasing a track, it's a summer track, who's the artist by, what other labels are coming out on, it's not clashing with their schedule, you don't want to put that out in December and it's got all samba beats in it and everyone's just going to play on New Year's Eve and play anthems anyway, it's going to flop. So having that foresight to think about that and not rushing the releases out when, that track could do so much better when you've got that strategy, and that's where we fit in as well. Whether it's starting it and running it through and through, because it develops and changes. We're there to help and advise when would be a good time to release it, where, what platforms, exclusives, and really help build that strategy around the release, the label, the vision, to see that through.
Absolutely, yeah. I think to add on that as well, like a lot of things we've talked about this week with people, is obviously there's always a big focus on certain DSPs, whether it's, Beatport, Spotify, Apple, but also it's always understanding your sort of market as well, looking at your territories, using that data to really understand, you know, where your releases are performing. And with things like TikTok coming through now, you know, we're seeing more and more that records that are, you know, that came out maybe a year ago, and then they have a little moment on TikTok or a similar platform, and then seeing that, identifying that, and we can then work those records, you know, whether it's to start an additional radio campaign in a certain territory or club promo, and yeah, I think it's a really important time for us to really understand the data that's coming through, which is something that, you know, we often have calls about and talk about, and, you know, so yeah, I mean, sort of moving on from that, I mean, I suppose it's a good thing to sort of explain our relationship, really, like how, you know, how often we speak and what things you look for from a distributor when we're working from us, and yeah.
I mean, I just kind of like, when we're working together, I mean, it's the relationship we've built over these years. Yeah, I think I like the fact that you concentrate on our like specific audience, and you kind of like work for the playlists, and I think that's another like important thing, especially Spotify and, you know, Beatport features and things like that. And I think just that's the like consistency that we've kind of like built together, and yeah, that's always been like really important, and it's, you know, a thing that I've learned being part of an independent label. Yeah, step by step we've kind of like built this, you know, like core, especially towards our audience and the music style that we're kind of, you know, pushing out there. And yeah, I like how we've done that together over these years.
Yeah. What sort of things you know, like key things in a relationship, like what you're looking for, like what sort of, you know, I think that's what's changed a lot over the years. You know, there's a lot of DIY sort of distribution platforms, but it's very self-service, where you can just upload and put a release out. You know, is it important for you to have that sort of, you know, one-to-one relationship, you know, someone who's knowledgeable, there's different territories, stores, and
yeah, of course, because it's more personal, like, and I kind of like that, like the relationship we have. Like, obviously these kind of like DIY, you know, platforms, I wouldn't be able to, you know, send you an email and just like we have it. It's all kind of like in real time, and that's like really important for me, and like as a label manager.
Yeah, I mean, with self-release or anything like that, with being an artist in general and a DJ, you can get 100% of the money, but you got to do 100% of the work. So you have a manager, give them a cut, they do something for you. You sign to a label takes a cut, they do something. Same with the distributor. You just got to make sure that whatever cut they're taking, whatever job they're doing is serving you. They're an extension of your team. If not, you're just the team. So we plug in and be an extension of what they need, and plug in any holes and advise and do that. So we work together as an extension of that and really help advise and vice versa to go through the whole process.
So just sort of recap, thinking like on sort of just general releases on the label, what are sort of the key challenges you have just in terms of setting the release up or working with the artist? Like, what are common things that often are problems that occur?
I mean, a lot of things is obviously time frame, because you're obviously like you're relying on the artist to get their pre-master on time. You're there, and then you're obviously sending that to mastering, and that can change everything, as you probably know. Like, you know, like it can really change the schedule. And artwork, I always say this, like, you kind of want all your artwork ready like 6 months in advance. Like, it can really slow the whole process down. Like,
yeah, artwork is a big thing for us. We're often swapping out artwork last minute for spelling mistakes, simple changes, but, you know, you just got to be fast evolving. And the amount of times we get sent tracks 24 hours before the release date, and they're like, this needs to be out tomorrow, and I want a feature and playlisting, and we're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. We can do it, but, you know, it's not really going to get the support. So, yeah, timelines, so important. You know, think ahead, plan 2-3 releases in advance. And talk to your distributor, whoever you work with, you know, make sure they're aware of what you're doing and what's going on. And, you know, whether you're using press, PR, whatever it might be, just keep everyone in the loop. It's all about communication. You know, it's so important. And so, I mean, well, you know, just thinking on sort of your sort of experience in running the label, like what are key moments, success stories, or favorite releases on the label, or things that you've worked on, highlights in your career?
I mean, it's just all down to relationships with me. It's just I like how because we've been like working, I've always been solely concentrating on consistency, and I just appreciate all the features and support we're getting now. And I think that's like probably, yeah, when it comes to success, that's the thing I'm happy about the most, is just people appreciate the consistency, and like it's just led to all the support and like love from like the music lovers.
Yeah, it's a two-way street with it, with like the label, the strategy, the implementation, and the consistency, and that applies with everything. Like the A&R, a good label, it's a solid A&R. They have You know, they're looking constantly about what's coming out, the next tracks. They all fit together. You know, it's not random. You know, there's a lot of work that's gone into that. They have the vision, the sound they want to do, and they keep to that mantra. Keep developing it, keep listening, keep talking to us, and that might change, but there's a reason for everything and there's a strategy behind that. And that then resonates through. So then when we do our part to the stores and everything, it's easier, we make our job easier because there's a reason for it. There's a story behind it. There's a consistency that the labels, the stores want to pick up on, because believe us, we used to get of 1,000 new labels sign up a month. And we deliver like 15,000 tracks now, so I think Beatport get 40,000 a week. There's a lot of noise and a lot to shout about, because the amount of people start a record label, release one track, and then just stop. So, you know, you have to really go with them with that solid plan of what's happening, where it's going with it and everything. And then when you do that and you have that consistency, then the stores and all the people in the chain have that trust with you. And that applies with the relationships with the artists as well. You know, they get with artists, and obviously when you run your label, at first you get tracks they've sent to other labels, and you get your third choice. But to get first choice, you want them to say, this is the heat I've just made. It's not going to X other big label. It's going to you. It's the relationship you build, you know. And they use products like our royalty software, so paying people on time, getting back to emails. You know, it sounds basic, but if you can really have that relationship with the artists all down the food chain, it just builds that consistency and trust that's going to resonate through, and then everyone's going to believe in the product, the label, and all through, you know, down the food chain, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, relationships are like a really key word. I mean, that's why conferences like IMS are so important for us to all network and, you know, connect with people. You know, kind of how the sort of relationship between, you know, as Nsoghu's arrived, it was through many years ago, it was a Beatport live stream that we'd arranged for a completely different label. And one of the artists was on the roster playing, and then we met, we got talking, and he was, oh, we do these events, and then that's how that relationship, you know, happened, and then developed into the label. It's not always a instant thing, but just, you know, building your own network base, connecting with people. You know, you never know who them people are going to be in, you know, 5-10 years, and so we're always like, you know, saying just be present, be involved in the scene, you know, just really immerse yourself in everything you're doing, because it's so important. You know, I've been doing this for like coming on to 12 years now, and you know, you had to make your own contact book, and I just went out there, went to the events, came to conferences, you know, all the parties I could go to, and just talk to everyone. And you know, it's great to see so many people here now I've met so many years ago, and we're all doing these great things together. And yeah, I think it's nice to be on stage doing this, to be fair.
Yeah, it's investment in those things, really. Like, you know, you just want to turn it one day and go, I'm going to smash it and do this big thing, and like, give me a track, cool. It takes a while for that to come, you know. There's a saying in the industry, overnight success is 10 years in the making, because you suddenly see this brand and like, oh, who are these smashing it? But like, there's, you know, 7 years behind to get to this point, you know, for these artists to believe in the label. And, you know, a lot of good labels, they sign up-and-coming artists, which, you know, the tracks they do okay, but then 5 years down the line, the artist is now much, much bigger, and these old tracks gain traction and start coming through, and then people look back and go, oh, wow, this label picked these up 3-4 years ago. Look at the trendsetters, but it takes that long to do it, you know. Became a very successful label, like they start all the time, and now they're big, but it's going to take a while to do that. So, you know, get prepared to be in it for the long haul and have that plan and just stick with it, you know, and really keep building on it.
So, I mean, thinking like future tech, or the future side of things as well, like what sort of your like plan and vision? How do you see the label progressing in the future, and how you're evolving things?
I mean, it's just you kind of have to like innovate and stay like relevant with the sound. But then that's like kind of my role. Like, I have to constantly research, look at the music, look at the artists, you know, be at the parties, and yeah, that's how I kind of, and you know, I just kind of take notes, constantly look at what's around, what music's been currently playing, and look at the charts, look at what other DJs are featuring, and yeah, kind of like develop from there. You know, speak to the founders and kind of just build from there. And yeah, it's quite a simple process. It's just time consuming, you know.
Do you think it's important to like stick to a certain sound as a label, or is it good to be diverse and experiment with different sounds?
I mean, you want to share like your initial formula, like what you start and the sound you want to, you know, give to the fans. And yeah, you kind of want to, yeah, just look what's around and develop from that. Like, obviously you have an original sound and style, but you know, it's constantly evolving. Like, as you can see, the scene, like the music's changing almost like monthly, like sometimes when you look at some of the charts out there. So, yeah.
Is it tech house? Is it minimal deep tech? Genres. It's one of our battles with the stores and labels. Everybody has an idea on it, but no, it's interesting. What keeps it? The point of that is it keeps it. That's the passion about it. You know, many heated calls with labels that the track went in the wrong genre and it needs to be in there because they've got a vision, they've got a sound, and they're trying to pioneer something, and they're trying to drive a new genre that doesn't really exist yet. And then Beatport created these genres, and that's born from the labels having the passion, the artists on, they're doing the A&R that are really deep rooted into that. You know, it's like the A&R process. So it's very similar with what you do with that. We go to the place as well. We see the new DJs coming up who could do labels. What are they doing? It's like our A&R process as well, seeing where the trends are moving, and then that what keeps our relationships good with Beatport and the stores, because our depth of knowledge then means they trust us and they'll believe us when we say these are going to be big. They're moving in the right direction, so they'll give us that extra help to give them features and things because we've got that integrity of we've done our homework, we've been there. We've been on the club, you know. You got a distributor and he's never been to any parties. Ask a question. Does he really know what your label's putting out? You know.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, it's just that whole consistency side of things, and you know, a big thing what we've been helping with during lockdown was, you know, obviously when the event stopped, it was artists were like, well, you know, the revenue streams are stopping. So one of the big things that we started implementing, we started this sort of Go Monthly campaign with a lot of labels, which was essentially to encourage labels to pay artists on a monthly basis, because we're trying to create a more, you know, regular revenue stream through royalties, you know, because just sometimes in the industry with certain record labels, you know, royalty payments have not always been consistent or there's a big delay. So, you know, I think, again, if you're thinking about sort of, you know, really wanting to grow a long-term label and really work with your core fan base of artists and keeping those regular payments, keeping that regular communication with them is so important to building that long-term label. And you know, I think, again, you know, Solid Grooves is a good example of it. They've always had this sort of core group of, you know, artists that they've worked with and they've looked after, you know, and beyond that, you know, a lot of them have, you know, most of them have all got their own individual labels now, including yourself. Now you've set up your own label as well. And yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, so yeah, obviously a lot of the artists that we obviously have under the label, they've all started kind of branching out, and I think that's what kind of happens. You know, you obviously have a sound that, like, obviously a certain label has, but you want to kind of have your own imprint as well, and that's why I started Silky. So like just to get like my music out there into like another sound that's like not connected to, you know, Solid Grooves. And yeah, like I think all artists kind of eventually branching out, especially if they're in like originally in a collective, and it kind of, yeah, it just expands like that.
Yeah. The point with that is the individual people, even you running it, or the A&R, you even know the A&R of that situation that your music doesn't fit on there. And you could just go, I get to put it on. But it wouldn't work and it would ruin that imprint. So it's like, it shouldn't belong there. It belongs on something else. And that backs up, again, the integrity and the vision and the consistency of it that keeps it good and keeps it, you know, because it should be somewhere else, you know. Again, that trap of, you know, well, I'll just stick it on my own label, or like, oh, it's my friend, I'll stick it out. You know, you've got to run it like a business, you know. You've got to really make the decisions that are correct for what that is. And sometimes it's a hard call, you know. You know, don't you make your track shit.
So thinking about like sort of other like core revenue streams for record labels, obviously we know about, you know, the royalties through your distribution, for your sales, your streams, your downloads. I mean, is there any other sort of key revenue streams that, you know, you think people should be looking out for, Matt?
Ooh, tough one. All of them. Yes, I mean, there's lots of, from the data side of it, there's lots of other areas. Neighbouring rights is a really big underserved one. A lot of people don't know that. So neighbouring rights, people think of it as publishing. It's actually performer royalties, not writers' royalties. And that's for anyone who performs on the track. With electronic dance music, the songwriter, the producer, the performer are all the same person. That would traditionally be, you know, a songwriter, Dolly Parton, an engineer in a studio, and then a performer who plays a bass guitar. So the neighbouring rights is the performer side of it. And there's money given for any public play or a radio player. And the label gets half of that for that phonographic performance. So whenever that track is played, not live, the label gets half of that. And most labels, especially dance music, don't even know it exists. Just goes in the pot and goes away. So Again, work with people who know that, who can advise that, and get every money that shows, you know, because there's a lot out there, basically.
Yeah. I mean, other key, YouTube has been a big one for the last few years. We've been putting a lot of focus on content ID, working with some third-party platforms that actually do that deeper scanning. Because again, with TikTok, what we've seen is, it's very short videos. They have these moments that go viral, but then also that spills onto YouTube. And again, these are the things that we've been looking at, like, well, how can we identify it sooner to then, not just monetize it, but then obviously actually, jump on that moment and expand that record again, whether it be to do a remix or, just sort of re-release the original maybe. I mean, do you do many remixes on the label, or what's your thoughts on remixes for?
I mean, when I've kind of been looking at the stores, I've noticed, even with my own label, I've noticed that singles, I've kind of concentrate on singles now. I don't actually push out remixes so much. 'Cause I just see not many, when I'm looking at all the stats, not many people are buying the whole EP. They're going, oh, I like that specific track, and they're going to buy that singular track. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to, prioritize singles from now on. And yeah, I've kind of just been pushing that concept forward.
Yeah, it's a funny one, because when it all changed over from vinyl, you had an A and a B original, maybe one or two remixes, and kind of copied that format into digital. And we had EPs and mixes, and it was kind of good for a while, but then we realized that you put two tracks on EP, and it was like there'd be one lead track, and the second one wouldn't really do well. Whereas having two separate singles, it was a better way of doing it and executing it. But it does change. It changes year on year, and another trend will pick up. And you never know, we might be with remixes in 3 years, and we might be there. But just have the communication, keep looking at these things, keep doing the research, and work with people that can help and see those trends and advise and say, look, it might be worth doing this. We've seen some good results with that. This is coming up, and that's a method of executing it.
Yeah, I mean, really looking at stores individually is so important. For example, like with Spotify, it's a very single-driven market. However, if you're building towards an EP campaign, so we do a lot of waterfalling tracks where you put the single out, then when you drop the next single, you actually attach the other single to it as the second track, if you like. And what those things, it helps, boosting the algorithms. It gives you a higher chance of getting placed in some circumstances. And with Apple Music, we're doing, we're working on sort of the Dolby Atmos stuff. With Kerry Chandler's album that's coming out, we're doing some stuff with the activation stuff with him across various stores and doing individual things with different stores. So again, that's sort of comes back to that communication with the distributor. Ask them, what is it we can do with this project? We've got this amazing concept, amazing album or release. What other things can we do rather than just putting it on a store? And I think that's something that we've always tried to bring to the table with our labels. And I hope that's something that you've found we've done with yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the worldwide, signed worldwide and released, it didn't really exist before digital. You signed, and it was territory based, and a label would take that and work that in that territory. And we have the ability to release it worldwide and just push it out there. But the stores, the countries, the territories are actually like individual tracks, individual artists that deserve different treatments of where that's going to have success. So if you're doing a PR campaign, you might use a PR company in Australia and really give it a push there, because it might get radio play there because it's very relevant to that market. That sound might be relevant in Argentina and someone's touring there. So it really can craft a campaign and craft that around that. And the stores are very much the same with that. So we do a lot with the house records with on Traxsource, the very kind of soulful house. So they'll do a much more the track version of it, and that'll just go on Traxsource, and a different track will go on Beatport, because the different markets and there's different people looking at it. So just going, oh, I'm going to put this techno track on Traxsource, and you go, oh, well, I didn't do well. Well, there's no thought there, was there? The store's like, you don't even know what we sell. So again, that integrity and that depth of knowledge around who's buying it, where's it being sold, is it relevant to them, then builds that relationship. So when you do go to a store and say, this is a good track, you're not rocking up with a 190 BPM GABA track for Traxsource,
So, I mean, I suppose just sort of thinking of some key things for people to take away. I mean, what's your sort of your final thought? What's your sort of key message you want people to walk away with and for running a record label? I
mean, the most important thing is manage your time. You want to be way ahead. A lot of people will get tracks, like I said previously. They'll have a selection of tracks, nothing's ready. You just want to be in advance. I try and give it 6 months to a year, in advance at all times, and make sure you're building relationships with your distributor, with your artists, and almost like a family kind of vibe with the whole thing, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, the same really. That lead-in times, it's so important. The stores obviously have lead-in times for deliveries that we have to work with. For pitching as well, we have deadlines. So again, music artists are artists, and that's why we love them. But they're not the most organised people in the world. So with some labels who always delivered their things late, we tell them that the deadline was a week before it was. Because then they're a day late, but then it works. So it's just managing expectation of the people, and it's simple. You just say, if you want to track out then, you're going to have to get the master then. It's a lie. You've got 2 weeks, but work that into your schedule, and then you get the best out of them, At the end of the day, the artist wants it out well, so that's how to handle them,
Yeah, I suppose that's kind of like wrapping things up. Does anyone have any questions, or, we'll obviously be hanging around afterwards, but yeah. Is anyone handing the microphone out? Oh, yeah.
You want to hear?
So I don't got a microphone with them, or?
You want the mic?
I don't know.
Hi. Oh, very loud, sorry. My question was, you've spoken quite a bit about building like a family with artists that you work with, which I completely understand creates like a really strong sound for a label. But then as a label matures, that creates some diversity challenges. So I was wondering, as the label has matured and with other labels that you work with, whether you feel a responsibility for that, and also the challenges that a label goes through as it grows, it starts to become more like accountable for certain things.
I just try and... That's a really interesting question. You're right. You have your kind of like core artists at the initial start, but you've got to kind of grow and develop and look for other artists, what's relevant, and look for upcoming artists as well. So, yeah, it's right to expand and look for other artists. So yeah, it's a challenge, but yeah, you just have to it's time-consuming, a challenge, but yeah, I just look for other artists and build that way.
Yeah, and I think, like what you sort of said with, with Solid Grooves is a lot of those core artists have eventually gone off to done some of their own projects and labels as well. So I think it's just working with those artists to allow them, to help them with that sort of freedom to, whether that's to release on your label or help them set up their own channel to sort of have their own output.
Anyone? Oh, me, apparently.
Hi, hello, thank you for being here. My name is Fabiana, I'm from Argentina. I'm press covering for Lugar for Comparlantes, and my question is about crossing borders. How do you do that? How do you manage to get to a market, for example, in South America? And is it just digital that you do, or do you get sometimes physical releases? How do you get them to the public in South America, for example?
We, as a LabelWorx, we focus on the digital distribution. We do have physical partners that we work with as well. But in terms of sort of getting into those borders, we have employees based in various countries like South Africa, Colombia, Mexico, Sydney. So when we've got certain releases that we're working on in certain territories, we'll speak to that person who's on the ground, understanding that market. We'll also work with local PR companies or press companies in those territories as well, because they obviously understand that market the most. So that's how we try and understand that market and work it with those particular records.
And the platforms as well. So yeah, like I said, Deezer is stronger in certain countries like South America than say Spotify and Boomplay. In Russia, obviously not now, but certain sounds with like VK and the NetEase and Tencent. Knowing those platforms, knowing what actual genres are strong in those territories. So you're curating what's going to who where, and understanding that sound and going, okay, that's how you get it to them, because you're sending them what's relevant, for that territory, and really pitching that rather than just pitching everything everywhere, and there's something that's not really big in that territory.
Cool. Oh.
Okay, my name is David. I'm thinking of starting a record label, but my background is in business, so I would want to be, if you like, the president of the record label and making the business decisions. If I was to partner with LabelWorx, what roles would I still need to have in my own company?
The most important thing, ultimately is about the music. So obviously you'd need to have someone with you who's helping you, A&R for the label, bringing good music in, and then we sort of help you on kind of the the administrative side, if you like, whether it's pitching to the DSPs or accounting to the artists. But yeah, fundamentally, you still need someone really involved in your label to help A&R in signing music and creating that vision for the label in that respect. Cool. Anything else to add? Cool. I think any more questions or?
Going once?
No. All right.
No.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Ramin, for coming, and thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
Thank you.
and we've got some T-shirts and hats if anyone wants. Cause we've done a 15-year rebrand, so there's Tony at the front here handing out T-shirts and bags and hats. Help yourself.